Hello, my children of the night. Welcome to the first video on the fandom species, Wickerbeasts. Yes, you heard me right. The first video, as in the first of many, as in there's more, as in not just this one, but others after. I too was planning for this to be a one-off video with details about the species, but there are pages and pages of lore and content about Wickerbeasts that I just could not sum up in one video and have it still be watchable. So this is part one. What are Wickerbeasts? I chose this species first because it was the one that I got told the most. I've never heard of that before. I too have only recently heard of it, despite being involved in the furry fandom for almost 15 years. Wickerbeasts are a fandom species that is open, but with some rules of which they vary by subtype. There are about 7 subtypes. Wickerbeasts are tall, fluffy, huggable giants from the planet Osova, although you might never see one yourself, not just because they're on a different planet, but because they don't really care for humans. The best way to explain the species is actually to go over the origins first, as the first one sets the basis for the rest, but before we start, I got to talk to the current species owner, Pine Warden, and I thought I should get them to share why they like Wickerbeasts in the video.
Wickers have been a part of my life for nearly 10 years, and have made me incredibly happy. I've made so many friends in the community, and I couldn't have found a home in the furry fandom more welcoming I feel. I find joy in drawing them, and find the critters incredibly expressive. The subtyping definitely gives me more freedom, creativity-wise.
And they're right, the community is huge, active, and they even have game nights together. It seems like a very tight-knit group, despite the size, which is hard to pull off. It makes me want a Wickerbeast of my own even more, but who has the free time to draw anymore, right? The first Wickerbeast, known as Wicker, was initially a vent character drawn by Demon Lady. A vent character, by the way, means a character or piece of art that was drawn by an artist in the moments of an intense emotional pressure, typically via anger or sadness. This can result in very personal, honest, and deep emotional work, and makes for some of the most unique works. This might explain Wicker's appearance and personality. Wickerbeasts have this sort of angry or twisted and mildly demented and intimidating appearance, and Wicker himself was initially made as a character who desired destruction with an insatiable appetite. With Wicker, we can see the basic features that are consistent across all subtypes of Wickerbeasts. Note the ears and how the inside points towards the body and backwards. The horns, lack of pupils, 4 claws that work as fingers, big fluffy manes, and long tails. Wicker became absurdly popular in a short amount of time, and this resulted in the advent of the species. However, just 6 months ago, Demon Lady, the original creator, stepped down as owner and has passed the species on to a new owner, the previously mentioned Pine Warden. I can imagine this was a tough choice for Demon Lady to make. The species is the spawn of something very personal to them, and it must have been quite a shock for the species to blow up as quickly as it did too. Wicker is just the first one. There are now 7 subtypes of Wickerbeasts, and I'll be going over them all. So before I start, if you liked this video so far, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed and liked the video. Because of how YouTube works, even if I make a good video, it could go entirely unnoticed. The best way to make sure others see this video is to like it. Also, take a look at my Patreon if you want your name in the credits or on a game case on my shelf. The first subtype is Standard. This is the most common subspecies of the Wickers that live in the most commonly populated areas that don't require specific mutations to survive or thrive. You can see these ones walking through cities, playing in forests, or just chilling in caves. Standard species have the usual mandatory features of inward-facing ears, 4 claws on the hands, 3 toes, short fur all over, hair-like manes, and eyes without pupils. As for what they can't have, no furred tails, horns must match, and must have horns. They look cute and small, but they range from the average adult human height to being able to hit their head on the door frames in your house. These adorable babs make up the majority of the population, with only 1 in 10 being of the next variant, King Wickers. King Wickerbeasts aren't too dissimilar from the average Wickerbeast, but have a few differences that make them easy to spot, and because of that they tend to be favored. The first thing you'll notice is that they are absolute units, standing anywhere between 6'5" to 13 feet tall. For everyone else in the world, that's about 2 to 4 meters tall. Kings have other noticeable features too, like enlarged claws, ears, more fur, including furred tails. Despite being the rare species, I can imagine that this is probably the more commonly made character because the floofier the better. The limitations are the same as Standard, except a furry tail tip is mandatory. Already, I really like this one. It's very striking and obscure, and when I think of the species, I think of this one. This one is called Rogue. Rogue are runts. They're the tiniest of the Wickers, but don't think, oh, look at the cute little fluffy baby. Rogues are still as tall as most humans, ranging from 4'6" to 6'6", or 137 centimeters to 201 centimeters. Imagine one of the taller ones looking down at you as they explain that they're the short one. Since they're not short to us, there are other ways that we can identify them. Rogues have no horns, no tail fluff, and little to no mane hair, but if they do have a mane, the rest of the body will usually have less fluff in exchange. Other than that, they have all the standard traits that you'd expect from Wickerbeasts. The subspecies mentioned thus far are ones that can be seen going around town. These next ones are regional and more rare. Swamp Wickers are, like the name suggests, much more accustomed to life in swamps. They have webbed toes and claws, thinner body, and an alligator-like tail to help them swim better and live their lives in swamps more comfortably. They're also the only subspecies to have these tails. The limitations are no tail fins, spikes, only the underside of the tail can be scaled, no fins besides webbing between their toes and fingers, then the usual rules for standard species, including the height ranges. Related to the swamp beast are their distant cousins, the pelagic. I hope I pronounced that right. Whereas swamp beasts are somewhat crocodilian, the pelagic are more shark-like, sporting gills on their cheeks and abrasive skin. They also have very little fur aside from their mane. The mane is slick and hydrophobic like an otter's and aid in swimming. And the body can grow various species of coral on their tails, thighs, shoulders, and horns. They also swim super fast, going at about 45 miles per hour. Aside from their fishiness, they differ from the standard species by having webbing under their arm and between their claws and toes, a thick sharky tail, and scales on the underside of their tail. They're also among the tallest of the wickers, ranging from the same heights as the king wicker, about 155 centimeters to 400 centimeters, or 5'1" to 13 feet. Dwellers are the final type that are fully detailed, as Arions are being reworked and hybrids are a species limited to approved artists. The dwellers are the result of inbreeding and mutation, and as such have several features that are inconsistent with many of the other species. They are lanky and scrawny to the point of showing their ribs. As for differences that would be more easily spotted by other species is their large nose horn, cropped ears, mismatched or misshapen horns, and the two claws growing on their tail. The latter they use, like their finger claws, to grip and manipulate objects. Their claws can, however, vary in size and usefulness. The most astounding thing about them is how they embrace these flaws to excel in an environment others might struggle. Dirt. They can dig with these extra horns and appendages, going up to 30 miles per hour. The only limitation they have are mandatory horns, no gemstone horns, must have horns, and can't be bigger than standard variants. I personally like this one a lot. I like the Wickerbeast because of their sort of demented appearance, and this one really just ups that demented look. Arions, as I mentioned, are getting a rework, as a lot of these species are, so I'll address those changes in a later video. Lucky for them, they'll probably get their own video. Hybrids are technically the final variant, but these aren't open to just anyone. You have to be an approved artist. Hybrids are a mix of Wickerbeasts and other species. Because of this, they are incapable of reproduction. You can only get them via commissions by approved artists or by the artist selling them. To be an approved artist, you have to apply. Maybe I'll do that after all of these videos, since I'll be essentially a historian after all of this. So, what are Wickerbeasts? They're really cool, that's for sure, but the videos about them are far from done. If you stuck around to the end, you must be pretty interested in them too, so I urge you to subscribe for more of these videos about Wickerbeasts and other fandom species you might not even know about. Also, be a clicker beast, and click that like button, and check out my Patreon to find out how you can get in the credits and on my game shelf. Thank you all for watching. I have to make a Wickerbeast OC. I'll see you all later. Stay batty.